Okay, so I don't want to go into big diatribe introducing what I'm doing here, although that in and of itself could take forever to explain. But in essence, this is a test. This is me offering an olive branch to the teachers and principals and people within the district in my area. Normally, I'm quite crass and foul-mouthed and distempered and all kinds of nasty things, and I have no tolerance whatsoever for people who mess with me. I am trying to be nice here. I'm still going to be absolutely blunt, so get ready to have your feelings hurt. All right? Because I know a lot of teachers and people within the group that I'm speaking about are very touchy, and they're very radicalized, if you would. Okay? And I understand, and I'm actually going to go over why that is, and that you need to have more insight into your own issues and your own situation. Okay? The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that you are public servants. This seems to be lost on every single one of you. We spend a lot of time saying thank you to our teachers. We say thank you so much, and we do. When someone is doing something for you, you say thank you. When somebody is carrying a burden, when somebody is providing something, you say thank you. But that has gotten to the point because we are granting them a level of authority over our children while we're not there. That has become excessively arrogant and overreaching, to where a perfect example of this, and I've mentioned this in board meetings with the schools before. The teachers and faculty and everybody comes to us and they'll say, we want to be partners. We want to be partners with the parents. Now, when they say that as we are the educated people, we're in charge, we're doing this stuff, and we want you to be partners in your child's education. We want you to join us and be partners in your child's education. In a sense, that's a good thing to do, to try to get more parents reactive or more active in their, not reactive, but active in their child's education. Because the thing is, the problem with it is it comes across backwards. We're the ones who are actually in charge of our child's education. It's gone through the news all over the place. There is no constitutional right to education. Okay, now they say this because what they're talking about is there's no government constitutional right for the government to provide an education. That said, our children have a right to an education from their parents. That's where the right exists. There are parental rights because we have parental responsibilities. It's my parental right to decide what food my child eats because it's my responsibility to put the food in their mouth. I have parental rights when it comes to school because it's my responsibility to educate them. Now, granted, we have this very lofty, almost daycare-ish style of teaching kids today, where kids go off to do the school all day so that the parents can work and do their things. And that's in part why we do some services with the government, is so that we can focus on the economy and they can take over some of the burdens that we need them to do. But at the same time, the government needs to understand, as teachers need to understand, you are public servants, okay? We are public and you are servants. Okay, quick definition check. A servant is an individual who assists others. I can't get this thing level. Who assists others with their duties. My duty to educate my child. My duty to feed my child. You assist me. We're not partners. I'm your boss. And as friendly as we are, and as thankful as I am for everything that you do, and you guys do a lot. There are some really amazing teachers. There's some sucky ones, you got to admit it. But We thank you for what you do. I was a public servant. I was a veteran. Now, when it comes to public servants, there's varying degrees of burden that we have to carry, okay? Different public servants carry those burdens, and they have different burdens based on their position. As a veteran, when you're an active duty service member, okay, and I say when you're active duty because being a member of the military is forever, okay? It doesn't stop. You are in a status of discharge. When you sign that contract to be part of the government, you are inside, you are right there acknowledging, okay, this is an ipso facto part of your contract, whether it's spelled out or not. When you become part of the government, okay, you switch sides with the Bill of Rights. You switch sides with the Constitution. You are no longer using that Constitution to protect you from the government. You're the government that everybody's protected from. You don't have First Amendment rights. You don't have Second Amendment rights. As the service member, veteran, who has carried the highest level of burden that's out there, okay, held multiple times by the United States Supreme Court to be a burden that is immeasurable, okay, because of the level and the amount of sacrifices that we have to make, okay? And I'm going to be clear here. The sacrifices that service members make, I know everybody says, oh, thank you very much for putting your lives on the line and going to foreign countries and protecting these people and being the frontline defense against evil in the world. That's not what we do. That's not our sacrifice. We do that stuff on top of the sacrifice that we do, okay? The sacrifices we make are our rights. You tell a service member, you, the public, tell me, the servant, shut up. And we say, sir, yes, sir. You tell us to pick up a gun or put it down. We have no right to say no. We say, sir, yes, sir. You tell me you want to put a medical shot of a gabagoblin in my tushy so that I can go fight slavery in Haiti. Guess what? I say, sir, yes, sir. Okay? That's what we do. Okay? You tell former members in history, I know full well that 9,900 of you going on that beach are going to die. And maybe if you're lucky, 100 of you might survive. Maybe. But I know I'm sending 9,900 of you to your deaths. And I'm telling you to do it. And they said, sir, yes, sir. They don't have a right to say no. They're not cops. They're not firemen. We all risk our lives. Even construction workers risk their lives in tall scaffolding buildings, and people who go underwater. Plumbers risk their lives going under houses. I've seen many deaths from that. But that's not the sacrifice we're making. The sacrifice we make is our rights. The other stuff is all on top of it. Now, every single public servant out there makes sacrifices. And while ours are immeasurable, which is why we get 3 holidays, the others can be more measurable. Teachers, even judges. Judges receive judicial immunity. Members of the government get a little bit of immunity to do their jobs. Service members, we don't get immunity. Nope. It's another one of those sacrifices. The others, where it's more measurable, you get levels of immunity. If you're in the honest performance of your duties, okay, you can have immunity. But when you blatantly or all out just go, screw you, I'm going to do this anyway, okay, that's what exacerbates it, okay? The burden on other people, judges, cannot go on TV and say, I think that this politician is the best guy in the world. Can't do it. They have to do these little workarounds where they have an association, and the association says, on behalf of our members, in their speech as a private entity, okay, as their right of people when they're not teachers, they want to say that this is their candidate, that they like this person as a whole. They prefer this guy. You can do that. Judges can do that, okay? When you are a teacher, the Bill of Rights protects parents and children from you. It doesn't protect the children and the parents, okay, from other people, and it doesn't protect you from parents or children's political views. So when a child comes to school wearing a political shirt, they're allowed to do that because it's free speech. When a parent says, I want my kid to be able to dress this way, that's their free speech that they're using. Okay? The parental right to say, I have authority over my child, okay? For the people who get real skewed on trying to take over the authority of your children, who would like to bash parents, will sit there and say things like, oh, what, do you own your children? No, I don't own them. They're not property, but I have a respected right of authority over them in totality. If I tell them to go to their room, they do that. If I don't want them to go to your school, they don't. If I want them to go to your school, they will. I have the authority to decide so much about their lives because I created them, okay? They are my DNA. That is a natural, evolutionary, I did this for me. It's basic. It's biology level. So social and governmental and all the rest of that can go to hell. This is just fact, okay? There's no law, there's no nothing that can stop the sun from exploding if that's what it was going to do. It's called that's reality. And the reality is that when a parent creates a child, it's their child. Now, there are times, because of our society, that we can override certain rights. Times of emergency, times when lives are at stake. And that's when we've gotten a little bit on the side of, okay, maybe the parent's being a little bit weird now, and it's beyond just being weird, and they're being dangerous to their own child. And trying to escalate social issues as life-threatening is exceptionally disgusting, to the point, and I don't say that as something that I know at a very super level, it's something that is philosophical, but it's also just kind of ingrained in our society. It is, okay? One of the basic things that teachers have to deal with is they have burdens too. And when you don't carry those burdens, it can be bad. If someone calls you a bad name, if somebody does a minor crime against you, okay? Let's say I cut you off on the freeway. That's illegal, okay? You watched me do it. It's a misdemeanor. You could arrest somebody for that. You can. You can do a citizen's arrest. You could arrest somebody for doing a misdemeanor. What changes that misdemeanor, what changes that little offense, even a felony offense, an accidental felony offense, is your response to it, okay? There's what's called non-cognitive crimes, and there are felonies. There are actual real crimes, okay? Typically people talk about the non-cognitive ones as basically the Karen crimes. They're crimes that don't really exist. They're just crimes that are subjectively, you hurt me because of the way I feel things should work and my own set of personal rules that I put on society, okay? That, you know, when you're walking down the thing, you have to be on the right side of the sidewalk. There's no actual law saying that. It's just we do that. We have a lot of social rules that we do, and they're not laws. Those are the non-cognitive crimes, okay? But there are things that are actual felonies that can be treated almost as if they're non-cognitive crimes. And that is typically based on the response of the individual who has committed the crime, okay? As a teacher, if you violate a parent's right and they say you're violating my rights, your response of you should just not worry about it. Oh, we did this thing so that you could still do this. It's no, you've crossed a line. I don't care if you're doing this. You're doing this thing that is actually a violation of my rights. If you put something in front of somebody's kid that they don't want in front of them, that can be a crime. If you push politics on a kid, that's a crime. If you express your political opinion in a classroom to the students, that's a crime. It is. It's actually a felony. You don't have a right to your political opinion when you're a teacher. And I know a lot of teachers. We had a recent piece where we were talking about how to discuss the issues in class, and they were like, well, what are we supposed to do if they say, hey, what's your opinion on abortion? What's your opinion on guns? What's your opinion on this or that or these? Your response to them as a teacher should never be, my opinion is this. Never. Because the moment you open your mouth and do that, it's a felony. Okay? Your response to that is, do you think I'm Hitler? Your response to that is, that's not my job. And I cannot do that because I'm not some criminal who's going to do that. To explain this, I'm going to explain the protections that the school board and district have against teachers who actually commit these crimes. It's called the Hatch Act. Now, we hear about it in the news because certain politicians or not politicians, but certain administrative people will sit there and do something political, which is a violation of the Hatch Act. You are part of the administrative branch. The only people who are allowed to have political opinions are politicians. That's it. Okay? That, and there's an exception for the president. That's it. Everybody else who's on the administrative branch, who's in the judiciary, no political opinions in your position of being a part of the government. Doesn't exist. Okay? So if you sit there and tell the kid your opinion, that's a felony. On top of that, that opens up liabilities to the school you work for. It opens up liabilities for the departments that you work for. We have an 11th Amendment. You can't sue the state, but I can sue the department. I can sue them because they have you on board. And it opens them up to liabilities because people are people and they screw up. Well, we created the Hatch Act, and it was kind of a reminder to let people know, hey, this is illegal. It is a felony right here. But we can also handle this a little less, more closer to a non-cognitive crime method and provide protection for the departments and agencies who have people who screw up and don't want to learn. What that was the Hatch Act. During World War II, what Hitler did to create the Nazi youth was he put all the teachers in and pushed his agenda from the teachers. Okay, and so we developed the Hatch Act specifically to tell teachers, okay, you're not supposed to do this. And by the way, if you do, we're going to protect the school and we're going to protect the boards by creating this little law that says, if we find out that you've done this and you did a political opinion, we'll come down and investigate. And if we find out it's true, depending on your response, okay, so even if you sit there and respond nicely, they can still, come after you. But it's highly unlikely at that point. Or they might just say, okay, we're just going to give you a warning, or we're going to do this if you responded in the best way. But if you respond in a bad way, or your outburst is not good on politics, then the response is you're fired. The federal government, under the Office of Special Counsel, is going to come down, investigate, and say, look, you're either going to fire that teacher, or you have to pay us twice that teacher's annual salary as a fine. And I don't know a lot of school boards that have that much money to save your butt because you screwed up. And that protects the school board because they took action. Okay. And if they pay the fine and they're willing to pay the fine, it also means that they're willing to pay the lawsuit that's going to come afterwards. So not only can the parent arrest you for it, but then you're going to get sued. And when the Hatch Act comes down and says you have to fire this teacher, you're not allowed to work for the government for at least, I think, 2 years, I think it is. So you're not going to be a teacher unless you can go find some private school that's willing to overlook this firing. So, yeah, the answer is I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm here when it comes to controversial issues, especially, to simply say, go get information here, read it, and figure it out. I'm the teacher. I teach you how to get the answer. I don't give them to you. And when you give them your political opinion, it looks like you're reading out of the back of the book. 5 + 3 is 8. I'm letting you know it's 8. Giving you the answer. Oh, what's the political opinion on this? It's this. I'm giving you the answer. That's how the child takes it. If a child's walking around saying, well, my teacher said, they're using you as the authoritative source of their opinion. That's bad. The government has told me what my opinion is supposed to be. And now that child is doing it. A lot of the things that have been going on today and the problems that people see in students, where you see these videos come out of recent escalations on whatever your opinion is for Palestine. There's kids who come out and say we're fighting for Palestine. Whether it's right or wrong, they don't even know what it is. They don't know what they've done. They don't know why. They don't know what they're asking for. They're just, oh, we're just radicalized and we're supposed to fight. And so that type of thing has become too much. And so a lot of people are pretty pissed off about it. Teachers carry a pretty high burden on that. One of the reasons that teachers get so involved in the lives of their children that are in their class, not their children, parents' children that are in their class, their students. Yes, and it's been culturally kind of done to say, okay, this is their kids. No, it's technically your students, but we say they're kids because they're kids. But the reason why you do it is because of little tiny colloquial finessing of language that we do like that. It's in part because you see them every single day and you watch them grow. And watching a child grow, okay? Sitting here watching my neighbor's kid get bigger. I've been sitting there and I've gone, what the heck? How'd they get so tall? You get this little response. But teachers, every year, that child goes to another class. He becomes another teacher's issue. It is still the parent who is responsible for that kid's education. They will hold the consequences. I don't know one student in the world, anywhere. Show me one, okay? There could be one. I'm not saying it's impossible, but oh my God, there's no way that there is some 30-year-old student eating Cheetos and watching TV in their teacher's basement. I can guarantee you that's not happening, and it never would. Okay? Why? Because the teachers aren't responsible for the kids. And if you're not responsible for them, you don't have the authority over them. You don't have the rights. You cannot have rights without responsibilities. The right to bear arms is because of my responsibility to protect my family. The right to free speech is because of my responsibility to go get information, bring it back, and share it with my family because I think it's the appropriate education for them. That's my responsibility. I have that, which is why my right is protected. My right to bear arms is protected. Why? Because I have to protect them. In all technicality, the government is not required to protect you, even in war. They could just sit there and say, yeah, just let the Russians come in. We're not going to do anything. It's your responsibility, okay? I know that seems like an impossible thing to happen, but it's legally possible, okay? There's very few people who ever die from a rabbit attack, but it doesn't make it impossible. It's basically at that level. And the simple fact of the matter is this becomes your responsibility. So when picking up rabbits, don't pick up rabbits with rabies. I've covered quite a bit I've gotten to about 24 minutes here. Let's see. I've got a couple of notes here on things that I wanted to cover. I want to cover one more big burden on teachers, not just the fact that you get emotionally attached, the fact that a lot of the students, when you're teaching them how to think, you've been radicalizing them to say, okay, you need to jump on the bandwagon. I know, whether it's right or wrong, I know a lot of kids were jumping on the bandwagon to protect or to defend or to stand up for Palestinian people because they've been radicalized and taught that's the underdog. You must go after them. They appear to be the underdog. They appear that everybody's mad at these people, so you have to protect them. Okay? If they're the hated group, you have to be part of the hated group so that you can be the victim and you can be the savior. Okay? As teachers, it's happened because of the way that you teach them about going out and getting this information versus sitting there and saying, look, you need to formulate an idea of what you think. Get this information, get that information, and you need to treat them, okay, as I don't care which way you go. It doesn't matter which decision they make, and especially on any kind of subjective decision. You might sit there and think, gay rights is subjective or not subjective and factual. No, it is. Okay? Being tolerant. This is a big word that's thrown around that nobody, I think, actually understands anymore. As far as I've seen, you don't know what tolerance is. Tolerance is being respectful of the rights of someone you absolutely hate. So when I see these people saying, oh, I like gay people, I'm so tolerant. No, you're not. You can't be tolerant of something that you like. You can't be tolerant of something that you accept. You can't be I can't be sitting there and going, I'm a Christian, I'm tolerant of Christians. No. That's not tolerance. Being tolerant is being tolerant of Hitler. Every one of us can point at somebody. I know there's a bunch of them who point at Hillary, point at Trump, point at all these politicians. Go, that's Hitler, that's Hitler, that's Hitler. To that person, their perspective, from their opinion, that is Hitler. That is a Hitler to them. In this country, Hitler is allowed to live next door to me, and I have to be tolerant of him being there. I have to be respectful of the fact that he has property. I have to be respectful of the fact that he has this. As long as that person is living by the laws of America, he's not actually killing Jews, he's not killing black people, he's not going out and doing this. He's allowed to lobby for it. He can go out there and try to convince politicians and say, we should be doing this. And you have to sit there and say, yeah, he's allowed to do it. Ugh. But I have the right to do the opposite. I've had so many people say, no, we can't let kids sit there and be bigots. You can't stop them. Not if that's what the parent wants. You can let the parent know. Say, look, here's the deal. Under the 14th Amendment, we have to respect the rights of everybody. Okay? And personally, I throw out any kind of color, sex, anything. It's irrelevant, doesn't matter anything to me. But for your kid, they do. And they need to understand that while they're allowed to think that black people are these lower species something, they have to be allowed and treated equally, regardless of what your belief is. Okay, that's the law. That's it. But beside that, you can go down wherever. We've seen videos of the most racist guys out there. Oh yeah, I hate whatever. Dumb, ignorant, whatever. You can think that. You can sit there and go, God, I'm so glad that's disappearing so bad. I'm so glad that's disappearing. But there's still some out there, and you cannot sit there and push your political beliefs on those kids. You can't. No. You can't sit there and say, well, I'm just saying, hey, this is who I am. No, you can't. You can't sit there and walk around with a pride pin. You can't walk around with a Let's Go Brandon pin. You can't walk around with any political stuff on you or push any political ideology in your classrooms. No. Well, I'm being respectful of their... No, you're being respectful of the possibility of autism and everybody's pretending to have it. That's what's going on. Okay? Don't get me started. My daughter has it. Actually diagnosed by doctors who lose money by giving her that diagnosis. So don't even try to compete on that level. Sorry, trying to keep that kind of political beliefs out of this video, but yeah, let's not go there because you'll lose. If you're pushing those political beliefs in there, you have to stop. I have to be able to send my kid to school knowing you're not going to violate my rights. As a member of the government, you cannot violate one person's rights. Not one parent. Not Hitler. You can't violate Hitler's rights when he sends Hitler Jr. You can't violate mine. You can't violate the next person. No one. When a lawsuit goes into court and they say, okay, this lawsuit says that you can't do this and that, you can't stop this free speech, or you can't stop this right to bear arms, or you can do this, or you can't do that. One of the first parts that goes in is whether or not the person has standing. A person. They're not ruling that you violated everyone's rights. They're ruling that you violated one person's right, or two, or maybe three in that lawsuit. That's what they're ruling. That you violated three, therefore the law as a whole, as it applies to everyone, is null and void. That's what they're ruling. You cannot violate one person's rights, even Hitler's. No. And you have to provide an environment where I can send my kid to school and you're not going to violate my free speech rights, and you have to take Hitler's kid and not violate his. Which means, yeah, all the personal belief stuff stays at home. That's things that we have to do. And that's something that has been getting lost in today's schools as well as the colleges. And the simple fact of the matter is people are going to start waking up and realizing, yes, if they're of all the stuff that they're talking about cutting in the government right now, the Office of Special Counsel, they could use the 78,000 agents coming out and saying, look, we're going to start slapping some hands. Hopefully not firing people, but slapping their hands. Your response to committing a felony will dictate that. If a parent comes to you and says, look, you're violating my rights, do not respond to them. Well, why don't you just, you forced my kid to sit there and watch this video. You can just opt out. You can have your kid excluded from the class. You can do, no. You have to ask my permission. Especially if it's something that's not anywhere on the curriculum as part of the school's academic piece. If it's not part of an academic class and part of that core curriculum, and it's anything on that, you better be asking permission, because guess what? The moment you don't, a parent can have a fit. And yeah, you just committed a felony. Yeah, that's a felony. You violated that parent's rights. Title 18, United States Code, 241, potentially 242. You violated their rights, and it makes both of those a felony, and they can't arrest you. Now, if your response to that is, well, why don't you just do this, or why don't you, we'll just, you could do this, you're basically saying, why don't you just bend over and take it like a man? Why don't you just do what the government says? Why don't you just exclude yourself and let us boss everybody else around? When you respond that way, it exacerbates the felony to no longer being anywhere near respondable as something that might just be a minor issue, something that was a cognitive crime. Treating it like one, treating it as something that's minor. When you sit there and say, no, we're going to keep doing it, we're not going to stop and say, okay, wait, what do you think that I did? And if I've done something, we need to stop. So we're going to stop what we're doing. What do you think we did? Explain this to me right now so that we can, if we think that we've done something, we got to check. I don't want to do these things. That's not good. That's how you respond. Then you're more likely to be in the clear. Then you're more likely in a situation where they're going to respond as it's non-cognitive. The moment you sit there and start doing, okay, well, it's not, it's this, that, the other, that's the point where felony becomes seriously real. Okay? And on time-sensitive issues, you're going to find that arrest becomes actually fastest possible means of stopping the activity. Because filing a civil lawsuit isn't always possible. Okay? Filing a civil lawsuit against a government person isn't always really possible. It's a very tricky thing to do, which means it's going to cost money. It's going to cost time. It's going to take knowledge of all the laws and how the courts work. Do you guys know what Rooker-Feldman doctrine is? Do you know what all these different doctrines are? Doubt it. Okay. And the average person probably doesn't either. But the average person does know when you hurt them or violate them, and they know how to do a citizen's arrest. Which, by the way, as a citizen's arrest, do not look at the law and look at this like it's freaking Perry Mason and you're just going to have this aha moment in the thing. Yes, arrests get done where people get tackled and thrown to the ground and handcuffed and taken in because they get all fisty fighty when they're arrested. Arrest could be as simple as walking up and saying, "Hey, sorry, dude, you screwed up and you're refusing to stop. I have to arrest you. Okay? I'm going to place you under arrest. It's all paperwork. We just walk down over here. We're going to do the thing. I'm going to file the paperwork. And guess what? It's done. Okay? And the police are going to look at it and say, okay, there you go. Here's some court dates. Show up. Okay? It could be that simple. It could be just go down, file the paper, come back, and they deal with it. Or it can be throw you on the ground, start fist fighting, all that other good stuff. It doesn't have to be. Okay? So I'm not sitting there saying even if it has to escalate to that's what you should be doing. But people get emotional and things escalate fast. Okay? So you should be trying to avoid that whenever possible. At least I do. Okay? Now, talked about tolerance for Hitler. Yes. Making sure that you sit there and say, I'm not going to violate those rights. So, I know there's more. I'm going to think of it. But like I said, this is a test, and we're already in about 35 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. And for those who want to see it, there you go. I may end up doing a longer version of this because I end up taking the test and developing it into a full thing. And there might be more and some other pieces that go with it. Okay. I know there's other things I'd like to talk about, but I think for now, this covers a large portion of points. There's probably going to be more clarity needed. And again, this is a test. Let's see what it does. And maybe I can start filling in a bunch of answers with a new video. Let me know your thoughts if you've been patient enough to watch this. And if you have any other information, feel free to include that too. Thanks.